Hello, my name is Alan Tibaldio. I am a native of Miami, Florida, and this is Mechanical Foundation, Part 1. I didn't learn structure from a textbook. I learned it from the interior of a Steinway. Growing up in my family's piano business in Miami, I saw instruments not as furniture, but as complex machines of tension and resonance. A piano is an interior world, a skeleton of cast iron and a skin of polished wood. My eyes were trained on the precision of the key and the geometry of the soundboard. This led me naturally to the University of Miami, where the mechanical order met the tropical light of the classical grid. I wasn't just learning to draw, I was learning to calculate the weight of a shadow. This is an image of my family's business in 1950 as acquired. These are drawings of my childhood. I was a very prolific drawer, artist, I should say. I would draw on everything and anything. University of Miami. This is the Rob Creer structure that was built after my graduation. The Bauhaus buildings that we created so much prolific work in. My Designer of the Year award in second year, 1987. My diploma, 5-year B.Arch in architecture from the University of Miami. This was a railroad station I did. This is one of the first projects we ever were given, a railroad station in Orlando, Florida. This was an urban planning project in Coconut Grove, Florida. This was a ceramic annex in the University of Miami, built out of modules. This was mangrove housing, where the bridges near to the shore were elongated as the growth of the mangrove. These were sketches throughout the property. This was Domino Housing, where the fish market intersected the housing project. It was in Little Havana. I worked with the concept of the flipping of the facades like dominoes. The structures were treated like domino sets, and the programs were flipped. Site elevations. I brought a tower to incorporate the urban quality of downtown into the lower portion of the site. The interiors. Some sketches of the site. This was a long room for the faculty of the University of Miami. It was just to be a one-room structure to host events. This is the Swimming Hall of Fame in Fort Lauderdale, where I broke the shore from the edge of the site to accentuate it. The volumes of the pools were treated as objects in space. Detail of the diving pool section. In London, at the Architecture Association under Nigel Coates, I stopped drawing buildings and started drawing stories.
Line be pumping, body rocking, people in the crowds, you hear the shout.
The Narrative Architecture Today Manifesto, the NATO building regs, my favorite being Jasper Johns' is One Thing Used is Another Made of Another. Renderings by the NATO group. This is an aerial view of the modernist Bryn Mawr Rubber Factory, Project 1 in London. Aerial drawings, the existing boiler house, pretty magnificent buildings actually. Interior details of the Bryn Mawr Rubber Factory. Atop one of the domes with my friend Jennifer, the sections of our intervention on the Bryn Mawr Rubber Factory, longitudinal and horizontal. Here are some aerial drawings of our final egress to and from via the tunnels, narrative drawings. In London, at the Alexander Fleming House at Ernest Goldfinger Modernist Building, also brutalist. Renderings of some of the interventions, narrative drawings. Here's some more ex-directory drawings. Here's some models of the interventions onto the Alexander Fleming House. Aerial views of the Elephant and Castle, South London. Those are site plans of Alexander Fleming House. Also part of the studies included traveling to Nigel Coates' house in Montesi, Italy, where we created elements of the landscape with signs of today and yesterday. Most of the luxury of the studies abroad were going to museums in London, traveling in and about London. Here we are at the ICA, the Situationalist exhibit. The Hill House by Mackintosh. My favorite museum, the Sir John Soane Museum, which was right around the corner from the AA. And here's the Glasgow School of Art by Mackintosh. The Columbia University School of Planning and Preservation, Arithmetic. I moved to New York to attend Columbia during the height of the digital revolution. Under Bernard Schumi, we weren't just drawing, we were calculating. I began to treat architecture as arithmetic, a series of algorithmic layers. I wasn't interested in the look of a building, I was interested in its code. I spent my nights at GSAPP mapping the flow of the city, treating the urban grid like a data set. This was my laboratory of the ideal, but as any architect knows, the most rigorous theory eventually has to meet the friction of the ground. My final thesis at Columbia University was a series of insertions within the Metropolitan Opera at Lincoln Center. My process consisted of a series of studies using a piano's parts which my father sent, and I deconstructed. The backstage was brought onto the facade of the opera. The final presentation was a series of flock constructions, evoking the mood of the existing Chagalls within the opera's existing lobby. After completing my studies at Columbia, I didn't just want to draw buildings. I wanted to live the architecture I'd been studying. I moved to Rome, Italy to establish my own practice, looking for that specific intersection of history and modern social life. First major intervention in the city was Bar Astro. It served as a laboratory for me, a way to take the high-level narrative theories from New York and distill them into a physical, social environment. It wasn't just a bar, it was a curated spatial experience, a stage for the moment. My work in Rome caught the eye of the prominent Italian jean company Energy, leading to a collaboration with their Art Energy exposition. I performed a structural analysis on the denim, deconstructing the garment and housing it in a portable optical viewing machine that traveled worldwide. This commission challenged me to scale down the level of a precise mobile object. Fashion Arena, Lincoln Road, Miami Beach. The Fashion Arena at Miami was merely a backdrop for the performance. The program was the body itself. I was no longer building walls, I was building stages for identity. I returned to Miami to see if this nomadic, deconstructed lodgia could survive the gravity of a permanent foundation. I built an award-winning home in Coral Gables. It was my proof of concept, applying the precision of my Columbia training to the classical masonry of my youth. The house was correct. It was a masterpiece of static form. But even as the last stone was laid, I realized I had built a container for a life, but I hadn't built the event itself. To capture that movement, I had to look beyond the stone and into the scale of the groove. At 15 minutes into this journey, the scale shifted again. I realized that if a building is a container for an event, then a record is a portable event. I stopped using a drafting pen and started using a vocal from an answering machine. These records traveled where my buildings couldn't. They were a form of instant urbanism. I could play a track in Tokyo, London, or New York, and for 6 minutes, I had constructed the exact same room for thousands of people. The record was the blueprint, the speakers were the construction crew.
Birthday! Barnaby, Quincy, and our Grace.
Jonesing!
Keeping up with the Joneses! Jonesing! Love you, bitch!
We loved it, we lived it, paid less for it, got more of it, and we didn't Napstertize it. 1985 minus 1, okay, that's today plus what? 2002 minus 84 equals 1984, 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 4. We're here in spirit, coming to you directly through the tweeters.
afternoon, and or evening. We are all gathered to celebrate the legacy of Mr. Peter Rawhofer. This led directly to my most notorious work, the door. Here the metaphor became the structure. I applied the same layering techniques I used in the paperless studio in New York. I treated the sub-bass as the load-bearing foundation, the percussion as the rhythmic grid, and the vocal as the primary circulation path. When the door charted prominently, I realized I had achieved the ultimate architectural goal, total ubiquity. A building is rooted in the soil, but this record was a portable threshold.
Yes, step to your right.
The ultimate sight, the body and the facade. But in 2018, the scale of my practice was forced into a radical distillation. A cancer diagnosis stripped the theater away. My body became the final sight. My recovery became the ultimate commission. I used wearable architecture as a secondary envelope to protect my spirit. Art by the likes of artists Scooter LaForge, Joe Tavio, Ralph Vidal, and various other distinguished artists.
Could you give me a little spin and a high kick?
That's an exit here.
Ooh, and a high kick. Boom, let's go.
But the narrative eventually needed to return to the street. This mural stands above where I've worked for 22 years. It is my final graphics section. I spent the first half of my life learning how to build rooms. I spent the second half learning how to be the room. The ornament is gone. The blueprint is clear. Tomorrow is black and white. Thank you for joining us on this talk of disciplinary elasticity and alternative practice.